族之物，必为我族之祭。在那儿，
真眼族
啊！前方是暴风带，
别拿你们开火！
是我小瞧他了，
稍有不慎，就会怎能眼睁睁让他落入异族手中？
如有失，
看来这远古文明粉碎，
此行
不能大到超过原始宇宙的任意势力。
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Alrasta channel. Here, I will share spoilers for SwallowedStar episode 232. Just a quick reminder, this breakdown is based on the novel, so expect some slight differences from the Donghua version. Alright, without further ado, let's dive right into the story. Deep within the terrifying 12 abysses, the Crimson Pyramid piloted by Luofeng had been tossing and turning for 6 straight days under the pull of an incredibly intense gravitational force. In this place, where even Jiafanzi's ancient records offered barely any info, Luofeng patiently steered his flying palace, tailing the black token that was drifting along in the same direction. For days, he had to hold back and couldn't do much. Every time he tried to use his divine power or his golden country technique, it was instantly shredded to pieces by the cosmic black hole's crushing gravity. Luck finally sided with Luofeng in the following days as he felt the extreme gravitational pull slowly weakening and becoming unstable. Wasting no time, Luofeng immediately reactivated his golden country technique. This time, it successfully pierced through the pressure and locked onto the black token's movement in the distance. With full control, a giant hand reached out from the star tower, snatched the precious black object, and safely pulled it into the tower, marking Luofeng's unexpected success right in the middle of a path of despair. Safe inside the Crimson Pyramid, Luofeng began inspecting the black token he had just secured. The material of this mysterious object was remarkably similar to a treasure he had encountered before. Luofeng realized that this black token was the key to unlocking a very special ancient secret room in the universe boat. Knowing how selfish the powerful warriors from the first reincarnation era were, and how much they hated the idea of their legacies falling into the hands of other races, Luofeng had high hopes that the 5 Chaos Master had stashed a mountain of precious treasures inside that secret room of hers. Luofeng then tried channeling his divine power into the black token to claim full ownership of it. Because the item had been tumbling around in the gravitational storm without any energy protection for so long, the soul imprint left behind by the 5 Chaos Master had grown incredibly weak. After a few attempts, her soul imprint was finally worn away and completely erased. By infusing his own soul imprint, the black token was now officially in Luofeng's grasp. Shortly after, Luofeng's Crimson Pyramid landed on a layer of green water that had extreme temperatures, matching even the freezing cold of the frozen lake Thunderbolt fire. Knowing that Jiafanzi's map only contained a tiny scrap of info about the 12 abysses, Luofeng understood perfectly that he had to rely on himself to survive and find a way out. He slowly began activating his golden country technique to map out his surroundings. A vast, deep area filled with complex labyrinth, preparing to settle in and explore this deadly place for quite a while. Meanwhile, in the outer regions of the universe ocean shrouded by chaotic air currents, 2 terrifying figures were rapidly teleporting over and over again. They were the 3rd true master and the 6th true master of the Divine Eye clan, currently hiding their true forms to look like ordinary humans. Filled with arrogance and furious over the 5 Chaos Masters' defeat, these 2 true gods intended to use this momentum to show their race's fangs to the entire universe ocean. They weren't even intimidated by the 2 Holy Land factions and were completely prepared to crush any other true god who dared to come hunting for treasures in the 12 abysses, including the huge axe creator from the human race. In another corner of the universe ocean, specifically deep within the Titled Peak realm, a terrifying phenomenon occurred right in the middle of a giant waterfall. A massive axe, over 90,000 kilometers long and covered in mysterious ancient engravings, suddenly appeared and cleaved through the surrounding space. The power of this axe was so absolute that it forced all natural laws to retreat, shattered flying boulders, and triggered movement speeds that broke through tens of thousands of times the speed of light. The figure behind this was none other than the huge axe creator, who had successfully broken through that absolute space domain with his boundless divine power. After successfully making his way out of the Titled Peak sector, the barefoot giant with messy hair stood tall, confidently gazing into the cosmic void. The huge axe creator knew all too well that the Divine Eye clan was a race of lunatics acting recklessly because their era's lifespan was almost up. So much so that they even dared to look down on the 2 Holy Lands. Inspired by the greatness of Ancestor Yuan, the furious huge axe creator was ready to make the higher-ups of the Divine Eye Clan the very first victims of his giant axe's sharpness on his journey toward the universe boat. Back in the depths of the 12 abysses, Luofeng continued piloting his star tower with extreme caution to inspect an area where 99% of it couldn't be penetrated by his detection powers. This place proved to be incredibly extreme, capable of destroying a palace-type pinnacle true treasure in just 5 minutes. Amidst his confusion, Luofeng's eyes suddenly locked onto a black object floating in the middle of a windstorm. Once he pulled it in using his Golden Country technique, Luofeng's eyes instantly lit up when he realized the object was a scale from the Extermination Godly armor. This was a clear sign that the rest of the legendary armor's pieces had to be somewhere nearby. Luofeng now held a single black scale that radiated a highly intimidating aura. Even though the Extermination Godly armor was legendary across the universe ocean, and its power was recognized by true gods, despite being just one tier below a supreme true treasure. The truth was that this armor had never been owned by anyone other than the 5 Chaos Master, so its true capabilities remained a mystery. Remembering how terrifying the 5 Beasts' god form was when she used this armor against him, Luofeng's ambition instantly flared up at the thought of mastering every piece of it. Luckily for Luofeng, because this scale had been drifting in the 12 abysses without any divine power protecting it, the 5 Chaos Master's soul imprint inside it was incredibly fragile and was successfully erased with just 2 blasts of his energy. However, Luofeng furrowed his brow for a moment because no information was transmitted into his consciousness after the scale recognized him as its new master. He realized that a single tiny scale wouldn't provide any valuable info until it formed a complete component, much like a jigsaw puzzle for a replica treasure. Wasting no time, Luofeng quickly steered the star tower and activated the Golden Country technique, turning his energy into giant golden hands that ruthlessly combed through every corner of the hazardous zone. His search yielded instant results as he managed to find the second scale, then the third, all the way up to hundreds of thousands of other fragments scattered around the area. At the same time, the 5 Chaos Master, who was in the Divine Eye Clan's first miniature universe, suddenly panicked when she realized that her soul imprints on the Extermination Godly armor fragments were being cut off one after another in rapid succession. She immediately reported this anomaly to the first true master, explaining that the loss of her soul imprints wasn't caused by the natural hazards of the 12 abysses, but because another powerful being had found her armor pieces and claimed them. They speculated that only 3 factions knew the secrets of this place, and the culprit moving this quickly was most likely a true god from either the human race or the Purple Moon Holy Land. This shocking news was immediately relayed by the first true master to the 3rd true master and 6th true master, who had just entered the internal region of the universe boat. Knowing that someone else had beaten them to the 9th level of the 12 abysses, the 2 higher-ups of the Divine Eye Clan instantly panicked because their current position was still way too far away. Completely ignoring the risks, they started crazily burning their divine power to tear through space and time so they could move at full speed. Back in the depths of the 12 abysses, Luofeng kept mapping out the distribution of the armor fragments in his mind, trying to predict the location of the largest pile with super high efficiency. After more than a month of non-stop searching, the number of fragments he managed to collect reached a fantastic amount, 182,900 pieces. Right as the final piece was pulled in, an extraordinary phenomenon happened inside the Star Tower's control room. The hundreds of thousands of black scales suddenly took flight and magically merged together, radiating an insanely overwhelming willpower pressure that reminded him of the bloodstain on a legendary pair of white wings. The merging process resulted in an ancient-looking black wrist guard that immediately attached itself to Luofeng's left arm and fused with his body. Along with it, a stream of ancient information flowed into his consciousness, revealing that the true name of this legendary armor was the Crazy Demon Extermination Godly armor, a terrifying name given directly by its original creator. Interestingly, once this wrist guard component was formed, Luofeng could now feel a mystical calling signal guiding him to detect the whereabouts of the rest of the armor fragments still scattered out there. Guided by that calling signal, Luofeng's search speed multiplied exponentially, to the point where he even started finding gold-colored scales that were specific parts for the armor's right arm. Over the next 32 days, the number of scales Luofeng collected skyrocketed, reaching over 6.9 million pieces, or about 80% of the total armor. As soon as the final fragment was successfully integrated, another drastic wave of changes occurred. The wrist guards, combat boots, and armor cloak aggressively assembled themselves in mid-air, forming a half-finished version of the crazy demon extermination godly armor that constantly tested Luofeng's mental endurance and iron willpower. The half-finished form of the crazy demon extermination godly armor now hovered in the Star Tower's control room, radiating a deep, dark light with a glowing golden right claw. In the very next second, a massive dump of ancient information flooded Luofeng's mind, explaining the incredible functions of this legendary armor. It was no joke. As a top-tier armor, it could dampen soul attacks down to a mere 1/100th of their power, and it absolutely weakened physical attacks down to 100,000th, far surpassing the greatness of the force armor he had been using all this time. This armor, formed from millions of scale fragments, didn't just serve as an absolute defensive shield. It could also be transformed into a long-range spiritual weapon, with the golden right claw acting as the core for lethal close combat attacks. However, behind its incredible power, this suit of armor had a very cunning and dangerous side effect that perfectly matched its name: Crazy Demon. If the user's willpower synchronized too deeply with the armor, they would fall into total madness, forgetting everything and only knowing how to fight blindly without being able to analyze the battle situation at all. Despite knowing the risk of going mad, Luofeng still decided to equip the black armor and put away his force armor so he could tap into its insane combat power and defense. Inside the armor's structure were layers upon layers of mysterious law engravings, especially on the golden right claw, where the level of complexity almost rivaled the Shi Wu wing. With the situation getting more urgent and true gods of the universe potentially arriving at any moment, Luofeng chose to hold off on studying the engravings and focused on gathering the remaining missing scale pieces instead. Meanwhile, half a month had passed, and the two true gods from the Divine Eye clan, the third true master and the sixth true master, were moving at speeds that simply didn't make sense. Using a palace-type pinnacle true treasure, they blasted through the frozen lake thunderbolt fire and shot straight toward the 9th level of the 12 abysses, at thousands of times the speed of light, distorting the natural laws around them. Armed with arrogance and a deep understanding of ancient techniques, these two true gods fully intended to slaughter anyone who dared to touch the treasure they claimed belonged to the Divine Eye clan. Back in the 12 abysses, Luofeng started feeling a wave of anxiety because out of the total 8,999,000 scale fragments that made up the armor, he was still missing the final 6 pieces. Considering the sensor range of this armor was much shorter than the Shi Wu wings, Luofeng had to close his eyes and map out the distribution of the scales in his mind until he pinpointed 9 remote spots at the edge of the abyss that were likely the resting places for the remaining components. Carefully, he steered the Crimson Pyramid along that dangerous route, not daring to activate his Golden Country technique so his presence wouldn't show up on enemy radar. Luofeng's efforts paid off within 9 days as he managed to secure 4 more fragments, leaving only the last 2 pieces which were expected to be in the 3 most remote areas. Just as he was estimating it would take another half a month to complete the armor, a communication token in his pocket suddenly vibrated, taking him by surprise. The incoming stream of messages was actually from his own master, Zuoshan Ke, who unexpectedly broke the news that he was already in the depths of the 12 abysses. Hearing the news that his master had arrived on the scene and had even managed to spy on the movements of the 3rd true master and 6th true master without being detected, Luofeng was instantly stunned and felt incredibly touched. Zuoshan Ke made it clear that without his help, Luofeng would never be able to navigate out of that deadly abyss labyrinth with the Star Tower, and would be trapped there forever. After Luofeng provided his current coordinates, his master immediately moved swiftly, cutting through the darkness of the 12 abysses, to pick up his favorite disciple. Knowing that his disciple's position was quite far away, Zuoshan Ke decided to limit his speed to under 100 times the speed of light, so his movements wouldn't arouse suspicion from the highly sensitive Divine Eye clan higher-ups. This gave Luofeng an estimated window of about 5 to 6 days, which he immediately used to relocate to one of the 3 untouched remote areas to serve as their new rendezvous point. Luofeng's anxiety instantly vanished, replaced by a warmth in his heart, realizing that the master he had always been wary of all this time actually rushed over without hesitation to save him from the dangers of the 12 abysses. 6 days later, amid the icy mountains, the Star Tower stopped moving after Luofeng failed to find the remaining armor fragments in the previous 3 areas. Right at that moment, Zuoshan Ke's coordinates came in, directing him to a triangular mountain peak with a surface so smooth it looked like a sculpted masterpiece. As soon as the Crimson Pyramid landed on the peak, One of the rocks there suddenly turned dark green and floated up, opening a gap as tiny as an ant. This served as an entrance gate for Luofeng's Star Tower to enter a stunning miniature glass world dimension inhabited by various races. The moment he set foot in that world, Zuo Shanke's eyes immediately locked onto the half-finished crazy demon extermination godly armor that Luofeng was wearing. As a legendary master in treasure forging, his master asked for permission to inspect the armor closely. His brow furrowed deeply after reading the secret engravings on its surface. Surprisingly, Zuo Shanke instantly guessed the armor's true name and issued a stern warning. If Luofeng ever lost consciousness while entering the crazy demon mode, he would be trapped in eternal madness forever, unless another powerful being could wake him up in a short amount of time. After receiving the valuable advice that the armor wouldn't be able to dominate his soul once he reached the willpower level of a true god warrior, Luofeng explained that he was only missing the last 2 scale fragments to perfect the armor. Guided by the mystical calling signal that suddenly activated on the 3rd day of their journey aboard the sitting mountain peak, his master's artificial rock mountain, whose power rivaled a supreme true treasure, they arrived at a vast, thick expanse of eternal permafrost without a single crack. Even though Zuo Shanke knew this frozen region was famously impossible for anyone in the universe ocean to break through, Luofeng insisted that his armor's sensors were detecting the final 2 scales right beneath their feet. Meanwhile, tension was brewing elsewhere in the upper layers of the Blazing Flames Lake as a giant figure, with his massive axe carved through space at extreme speeds. The huge axe creator had finally arrived from the tilted peak realm and immediately dropped his speed as soon as he detected the presence of the 12 Abysses black hole. Figuring that the higher-ups of the Divine Eye clan must have already entered the abyss ahead of him, the strongest warrior of the human race fearlessly shot straight into the darkness of the 12 Abysses to secure Luofeng's situation. Deep in the 9th level, after 2 days of circling above the expanse of ice with 0 results, Luofeng's despair finally broke when Zuo Shanke confidently announced he had found a way in. His master, showing off just a bit, explained that out of all the true gods from the major factions and the 2 holy lands, probably fewer than 3 people could solve the mystery of this famously desolate land of eternal ice. He made it clear that if Luofeng were acting alone, even if his cultivation reached the absolute peak, he would never be able to break through the invisible barriers of this mysterious place. Telling his disciple to watch the sheer brilliance of his forging techniques, Zuo Shanke immediately expanded the size of his green mountain on a massive scale until it slammed into the eternal ice surface. In the very next second, the mountain emitted millions of distorted light beams that formed millions of ancient secret engravings, which began to creep and seep into the ground. As a result, the once plain expanse of permafrost suddenly transformed, displaying a giant 10 billion kilometer wide secret engraved diagram, ready to open the gates to the deepest secrets of the 12 Abysses. A split second later, the ancient secret engravings on the layer of eternal ice suddenly surged violently, and Zuo Shanke's giant green mountain vanished, teleporting away. His master explained that this was a special spatial transportation technique, similar to the portal system inside the Star Tower, where the portal points were very cleverly disguised. Smiling at his disciple's confusion, Zuo Shanke reiterated that out of all the true gods in the universe ocean, not even 3 of them could identify this mystery as fast as he did. His master added a mind-blowing fact. The universe boat wasn't actually just a hazardous zone, but an artificial treasure whose level of wonder far exceeded any supreme true treasure ever known. After the flash of the transportation light faded, they arrived in a hidden spatial dimension that was incredibly quiet and simple. In the middle of this space, there was a massive lake surrounding a small island, 1 million kilometers in diameter, filled with rows of ancient palaces built from natural rock. Wasting no time, as the mystical calling signal from his armor was getting stronger, Luofeng quickly launched the Crimson Pyramid and dove into the bottom of the icy lake. Backed by the absolute power of the Star Tower, which was impossible for natural hazards to destroy, Luofeng easily controlled his giant golden energy to snatch up the final 2-scale fragments stranded at the bottom of the lake. This success made Luofeng ecstatic, and after the 2 icy scales recognized him as their new master, all 8,999,000 pieces of the crazy demon extermination godly armor instantly floated up and assembled perfectly around his body. The combination of millions of black and gold scales immediately radiated a highly complex law engraving structure, brilliantly integrating defense, close combat, and long-range attack systems. As soon as Luofeng fused the armor with his 4 silver Shiwu wings, the armor's color suddenly mutated into a glittering silver with a silvery right arm. a perfect disguise that not even the 5 Chaos Master herself would ever be able to recognize. Seeing that the armor had sustained some minor damage from the 5 Chaos Masters' battle in the lava ocean, Zuoshan-Ke confidently offered to fix it, claiming that he was the only being in the universe ocean capable of repairing a treasure that complex. After taking the armor from his disciple, his master invited Luofeng to explore the mysterious island, which was believed to be the private domain of a powerful being from an ancient civilization, long before the era of the 2 holy lands even existed. Along the stone palace walls, their eyes were treated to ancient carved reliefs depicting massive fleets of ships, battles between mighty headless creatures, and scenes of millions of beings bowing down in worship. These emotional carvings radiated such a strong ancient civilization energy that they actually messed with Luofeng's mind for a moment. Through a brief discussion, Luofeng realized that the giant ship in the reliefs was none other than the complete form of the universe boat, showcasing just how incredibly powerful the entity that built it must have been in the past. Zuoshan-Ke explained that his forging knowledge, the Divine Eye Clan's secret techniques, and even the glory of the 2 holy lands all originated from the remnants of ancient spaces, just like this one. When Luofeng started getting curious about the whereabouts of the mysterious ancestors of the 2 holy lands, his master immediately warned his disciple not to waste time thinking about it until his power successfully reached the true god level. Walking side by side into the palace's main corridor area, the 2 of them kept observing the series of visual carvings that showed everything from the cheers of victory to the angry roars of ancient warlords. The mystical vibe of the place made Luofeng feel as if he were walking through a replica monument of a fallen cosmic empire. Zuoshan-Ke's footsteps suddenly came to a halt when they reached the deepest center of the palace, where a massive wall stood firmly in front of them. On that giant wall, rows of highly complex and mysterious ancient characters were carved. Even though Luofeng had never studied the language, the emotional energy embedded in the carvings automatically transmitted a deeply concentrated message of regret and anger straight into his consciousness. The ancient message spoke of a fatal mistake that had cost everything, a breakthrough in power that ended up being completely pointless, and absolute despair because, in the end, all that struggle only led to death after death. The words, full of resentment and regret on that wall, instantly left Luofeng and Zuoshan-Ke stunned in a gripping silence. The foreign characters carved on the ancient palace wall instantly triggered an intense storm of emotions, making Luofeng feel like he could hear the desperate roars of a supreme being from the past. The phantom voice echoed, mourning the deaths that came one by one with no one being able to escape. Once Luofeng managed to regain control of his consciousness, he realized just how terrifyingly powerful that extinct entity must have been, because just through the scribbled words left behind, the pressure on his willpower and soul still felt absolute. Luofeng speculated that most of the legendary treasures currently scattered across the universe ocean were highly likely the legacy of a tyrannical civilization from the past that had been tragically wiped out. Zuoshan-Ke, standing beside him, showed a rarely seen expression of sadness before finally shaking his head. His master confirmed that the mysterious ruler who left that message was far stronger than he was, maybe even superior to Ancestor Yuan of the human race. Seeing his master pondering the ultimate fate of their fleeting reincarnation era, Luofeng instead showed a gaze as sharp as a sword and ambitiously declared that he would keep fighting, making the most of his cultivation time to break through to the absolute highest peak. His disciple's burning spirit successfully brought the smile back to Zuoshan-Ke's face. The 2 of them then moved quickly, exploring the rest of the ancient palace. Amidst the silence of the island, which was filled with grand buildings but absolutely zero vegetation, Zuoshan-Ke's footsteps suddenly took a sharp turn into the 3rd courtyard of the palace as he called out to his disciple with a voice that seemed to tremble slightly. Inside that spacious courtyard stood a giant, 1,000-meter-tall decorative wall radiating a massively oppressive aura. Without Luofeng realizing it, the surface of the wall was actually embedded with millions of nanometer-scale secret engravings that formed an incredibly complex 3-dimensional diagram. When Luofeng focused his gaze, his consciousness was suddenly sucked into an otherworldly illusion where billions of creatures from various races were seen bowing in one direction while chanting a mystical demon-breaking spell. Luckily for Luofeng, a blast of divine power from Zuoshan-Ke immediately snapped him out of it and saved his soul from the danger of that absolute hypnosis. His master warned him that the legendary diagram on the wall was a highly profound top-tier masterpiece from an ancient civilization, where the creator themselves had written a final message of regret in the corner of the courtyard. stating that they had successfully created their ultimate technique right before death came for them. Zuo Shanke explained that across the 3 most dangerous regions of the universe ocean, he had found 9 similar relic monuments. However, most of the owners had no intention of passing down their knowledge because they didn't leave behind any basic foundational guides. Just as his master was sighing, he suddenly noticed Luofeng was once again transfixed, staring at a tiny corner of the giant wall diagram. Through that corner, which was only 1,000th of the whole piece, Luofeng was mesmerized, seeing how the fundamental particles that make up the universe were assembled in such a way to build a soul, a mysterious law completely different from the usual elemental law combinations or standard space-time manipulation. After 3 days of unconsciously drowning in visual meditation, Luofeng was once again woken up by his master. Luofeng excitedly explained that the basic structure of the ancient secret engravings had cleared the blockage in his understanding, which had been stagnant at the universe venerable limit for a while. Hearing that, Zuo Shanke laughed and admitted that during the 3 days of keeping his disciple company, he had also managed to dissect and replicate 5 basic types of diagrams from the wall. His master then carved those 5 replica diagrams on the wall of the next courtyard as a valuable stepping stone, so Luofeng could learn the ancient technique much faster. Before they wrapped up their exploration, Zuo Shanke suggested that Luofeng leave one of his clone bodies on the safe island to focus on meditating and understanding the ancient diagrams without any interruptions. The reason was that his master had detected a massive surge of energy from the outer region, indicating that a huge battle was taking place among true god warriors. Hearing his master's speculation that one of the parties fighting like crazy out there was highly likely the huge axe creator, Luofeng quickly rushed to prep himself to witness the epic clash. Anxiety instantly hit Luofeng's mind, knowing that humanity's protector might be out there risking his life. Wasting no time, he quickly condensed a portion of his divine power to form a clone body, or a human-shaped avatar. For an Immortal level fighter, splitting the body was nearly impossible because it could result in a loss of consciousness. But for a universe venerable like Luofeng, this technique was a breeze. After making sure his clone would stay on the mysterious island forever to study the ancient secret diagrams left behind by the past civilization, Zuo Shanke immediately reactivated the giant portal diagram and transported his master's green mountain out of the isolated dimension. Breaking through the layer of eternal ice once again, Zuo Shanke's giant green mountain immediately shot forward at insane speeds, which kept spiking until it broke past 100 times the speed of light. Seeing this, Luofeng tried to warn his master, because such extreme movement breaking the boundaries of natural laws carried a huge risk of triggering the radar detection of other true gods. However, while pouring some fruit wine gifted by a comrade from the second reincarnation era, Zuo Shanke replied super casually that if they moved too slow, the big fight out there would surely be over before they even got there to watch. Just a short while after the rock mountain's speed spiked drastically to tens of thousands of times the speed of light, a massive shockwave that made the entire space violently tremble immediately jolted Luofeng's consciousness. As soon as Zuo Shanke turned the mountain walls transparent, the view outside showed the windstorms and lava oceans of the universe boat suddenly freezing up, completely immobilized in the face of the true god's energy clash. Luofeng, who had been holding his breath, could finally sigh in relief because the enemy currently facing off against the Divine Eye clan's deadly duo wasn't the huge axe creator at all, but a legendary entity known as Brilliant Gold, or Jin Huang Mo Shen. Then what happened next? Alright, thanks for watching until the very end, and don't forget to keep supporting this channel by leaving a comment, dropping a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, bye.
是我想敲他了。胜利不是，就会在能眼睁睁让他落入异族手中。
如有失。